So, turning to both of you, and can I just put a question, maybe that I'm very conscious of? Are you both finding this situation difficult? It's an interview, it's a social situation. Do you find it difficult?
I would say that this situation is probably fairly structured. There's an interviewer, there's a room, we all have our roles. I don't know about you, Frederick, but I'd be more relaxed with this than standing out in the street.
Most definitely. What I find a problem is when you've got like many people are in a room, or like a whole group of people. I find it difficult to follow from one person to another person, to change the direction I'm looking, readjust my mind to what somebody else is thinking. And also, I always think that conversation, for me, I have to translate it into mental images. And the way I see conversation is like a long set of railway carriages. And the first bit I might be able to translate, and, I might be doing well with that. And I might be doing well with the end bit, but the bit in the middle, sometimes I will lose, and I have to kind of match the two together and use my intelligence to work out what was meant in that conversation, filling in the gaps sort of thing, a bit like a crossword puzzle or something. Yeah.
And can that have to do sometimes, Frederick, with taking things very literally?
Yeah, I take things literally because I don't know how else to take them. It's pure logic, isn't it? If you don't take it literally, how do you take it? And so it's a system of language that works, and whatever system is that. It's neurotypical people that that are illogical. Yeah.
Yes, people who don't have Asperger's. But say it's something like somebody falls down and they hurt themselves, and you say, "Are you all right?" And they say, "Yeah, I'm fine." They're not actually, but their immediate reaction is to say, "I'm fine." What do you do?
Well, this is a thing that actually happened to me at work, where somebody was pouring out some hot water, and they spilt the hot water on the hand by accident. And I said, "Are you all right?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, okay." And I walked off. And later on, I found out that person was actually a bit upset that I just walked off. And I'm like, "Well, you told me you was all right." So, yeah, I mean, it can cause problems like that sometimes. I don't know if you find that's the case, Ben.
When I was younger, I used to get very frustrated with people who would use idioms or say things that were not meant to be interpreted literally. And I would sometimes go to the point of deliberately interpreting something literally when I knew it wasn't meant to be.
Like what?
If I was, say, crossing the road and I was told to watch the road, I'd make a point of not looking left, right, or any cars, but having my head down, watching the road. I was making a point about their language.
That's what I thought you were saying. You was making a point on that, just like, hey, I'm here, remember?
And I suppose, nowadays I let a lot of these idioms and things slide, but if someone abuses language, like if they said, "She literally exploded," I will go, "Oh no, she exploded? Who picked up the mess?" And wait for them to, look surprised.
But say where somebody in a conversation would use a phrase like, "It's raining cats and dogs." Was there a time when that really threw you?
Well, for myself, can I jump in there?
Yeah, please jump in whenever you like.
For myself, I mean, I don't think there was ever a point where I really believed that, because, I've got enough intelligence to know that it's not going to rain cats and dogs. But it was just that if you hear something like that, it just makes you feel a bit awkward. It's just like, why are you saying something that just doesn't sound right? It's like when I'm in the car with my son, right? And my son's got Asperger's, as I mentioned earlier. If we're looking for somewhere to park, I have to be very careful what I say. And I have to say, "Can you keep your eyes open?" to my children. "Can you keep your eyes open? We need to find somewhere to park." Sometimes my daughter winds up my son by saying, "No, Dad, you mean can you keep your eyes peeled?" And my son goes, "Oh, no, don't do that to me." Because because visually you can see it, and it's horrible when you see these things. Yeah.
It's too graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ben, is it more an impatience with the imprecision of colourful language that gets to you, rather than that you genuinely believe that it's raining cats and dogs?
I think, as Frederick said, we've got a lot more understanding now, and we know what people really mean, but it's very frustrating when ambiguous or misleading language is used and it conjures up the wrong images. And I feel, slows down communication. If I had my way, everyone would feed information into me like a computer.
The other thing that can arise as a pattern for people with Asperger's syndrome is the difficulty with eye contact. Ben, does that go on? Is that something you still experience?
I think there's always a difficulty, but we learn what the social rules are. So it's something you have to do that takes more energy. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well.
No, I think you are. I feel the same way. Like I said to you earlier, Olivia, when I'm talking to you, I might not want to look at you in the eyes during the actual interview because it helps me to feel more relaxed. When I'm looking in somebody's eyes, I feel like I'm getting a lot of information from their eyes. It's too much information, folks. It's you feel like you can read a lot of information from the eyes. So when I'm talking, I like not to look at the eyes because I can't multitask. I can't do that as well as concentrate on what I'm saying. If I'm in a situation where I'm forced to through social rules to look in somebody's eyes when I'm not comfortable, I find it almost painful to do that. I have developed like strategies that I'm still working on, such as just above the bridge of the nose. I imagine there's 3 dots formed in a symmetrical triangle, and I look from dot to dot above the bridge of the nose, and therefore it looks to the person that I'm speaking to like I'm looking into their eyes. But I'm still working on that strategy.
So if it was a job interview or something,
Yes,
that's what you'd do. And is it because you can actually tell, you can see too far into somebody's mind?
Yeah, I wonder if it's like Simon Baron-Cohen says, that within the autistic person there is the ability to be what he terms to be a natural psychologist. That is, that you can pick up a lot of information that maybe other people wouldn't pick up.
And that can be uncomfortable.
It can be, yeah.
I think
Sorry, Ben.
I think I've experienced that to some degree, in that because I've learnt social interaction kind of almost as a taught subject, that I have more empathy than other people would necessarily think. And some people feel like I know all their secrets, when all I'm doing is picking up on body language or tidbits of information that then form a more accurate picture.
So what about friends then? How easy have you found it to make friends?
I found it fairly easy. Usually I've made friends in an environment where there's a shared common interest, be that at school or university or in the workplace. Because of this common interest, we move beyond small talk and actually develop an interest in each other for our opinions or our beliefs or things we can do together.
So you would share very often information rather than necessarily emotions?
Yes. I don't think I have any friends that I'd be interested in sharing my emotions with, and that's no criticism of my friends at all.
But with your wife, obviously, you would share those emotions.
I'm sure she would like me to.
Don't you? Or not as much as she might like.
I think, to me, I find my own feelings, emotions and thoughts to be very private. And even with my wife, I struggle to open up and communicate on that level.
And an awful lot of men, actually, would share that feeling, wouldn't they? And I think it's interesting that Dr. Asperger, who first found and tracked this particular syndrome, used to refer to it, I think, as an extreme form of maleness.
That's right. He also called his patients little professors, insofar as they were normally very intelligent and had a lot of intellectual capacity and could focus on particular subjects without necessarily the emotional intelligence behind it. I think that in the past a man could retreat to his study and have his own interests and obsessions and not even necessarily socialise outside of his immediate family and wouldn't be considered odd at all, whereas today more and more in the modern era we're expected to interact with many people on many levels, and our schooling system is far more focused on personal development rather than academic development. There's a lot more team building, etc. And I think this is causing the increased diagnosis.
So, for both of you, when things go wrong, when you're under stress, what's the default mechanism, as the computer people might say? Is it to get away from everybody into a room on your own?
I think it depends on what kind of situation. If it is stress in an immediate social situation, I might react fairly negatively. I might antagonise, try and create a disruption or disturbance to try and shift the focus away from how I'm feeling.
So going away into a room on your own isn't necessarily always your answer?
No, but it might be a good idea sometimes.
What about you, Frederick?
Well, that can be the answer for me sometimes. But also there is something else that I've been using. There has been research carried out in Australia on chanting and how chanting can actually help people with autism. What I have found, because I have been doing a what we call a mantra chant, which is the Hare Krishna chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if you do this chant enough times, over enough days, it actually helps to bring down a lot of the anxieties that you would otherwise feel.
Can I just put a final question then to you both? You have had to learn to adapt to the non-Asperger's world, if I can put it that way. Are there things that non-Asperger's world can learn from you?
Yeah.
Frederick?
I think to be a bit more open-minded, because people that have a different way of thinking, people that have brains that are wired up differently, it doesn't mean that they don't have something to offer the world, just because they don't fit into a nice, clean bracket. And I think if people were in the powers that be were a bit more open-minded to see beyond what's right in front of them, they would see that a lot of people who have a different way of thinking can be very valuable in this world.
Ben?
I think I certainly find that a lot of social situations have unspoken truths that everyone knows, but it would be rude to speak. And to me, that's a form of hypocrisy that I rail against, and my wife tells me to behave. I think a lot could be said for a world in which people were more clear-spoken and honest, and relationships were evaluated based on their functional value rather than their social value.
Frederick and Ben, thank you both very much.
Between Ourselves was presented by Olivia O'Leary and produced in Birmingham by Karen Gregor. The series was developed from an idea by Esther Ranson and Sarah Conkey.